Today I'm going to show you how to use a tool called Perspective Warp. And I'm first going to do this with this file here, just so I can show you what the properties are before we actually apply it to something else. So this is just a standard sort of box that has been wrapped maybe for the mail. And the first thing I did is in the file itself, I always come in and I press Command J in order to create a new layer. Once I have a new layer of my file, I always do this just to make sure that I don't lose my original file. I'm going to now come into layer 1 and I'm going to press the control key here, and I want to convert this to a smart object. That way, whatever changes that we make, we can go back and make adjustments as needed. All right, now with this layer here, just for good practice, I'm just going to put in, title it, and give it the name box. Now I'm going to go up to Edit here, and I'm going to go to Perspective Warp. Now, when Perspective Warp comes up, there are two icons up here at the very top here. One's called Layout, and one's called Warp. And we want to start on the Layout with the Layout button selected. And the first thing that we want to do here is we're going to just draw a rectangle. So I'm going to draw a rectangle. The first thing here, I'm just going to go to the bottom here and to the top here. And I can kind of do this loosely. This isn't as imperative as it might be for something that we're really working on. I'm just trying to show you the principles here. All right, I'm going to draw another rectangle here. And then when I draw another rectangle here, do you see how the two blue lines are highlighted? Once that shows up, it's going to show me that they're going to connect. So I'm going to do that, and then there you go, it connects. So then I can come in here and I can just move my points here so that it lines up with the plane of this side of the box here. And then I'll do one more where I'm going to do the top of the box here. And you can see that it's showing right now two blue lines here. So if I just release like this, it connects it here, and then I can drag this down to this point here and then come to the back here and kind of line that up here. All right, so once I have that, then I can go to Warp up here in the menu box here. And I click on Warp here, and then this is where I'm going to be able to move some things around here. So if I click on this point here and I move, you can see that I'm starting to warp things. I can also kind of rearrange, right? So I'm just changing different planes here. And then I can always, if I hold down the Shift key, if I hold down the Shift key and I move my cursor over the center, it will actually highlight it to yellow. And then when it's highlighted yellow, if I click on it, it will make sure that this is perfectly vertical. And I think that's important to make sure that it's, especially if I'm working to try to make sure that it looks exactly like perfect perspective. Okay. So, as I said, you can move these so that you can change the perspective. This is, obviously, if you need to make some adjustments here, you can. But this is essentially sort of the properties. Once you are happy with the edits, just press return and it will accept it, and then here it is. Now, because we made this a smart object, all I have to do is click on the Perspective Warp to get back into it and make adjustments. All right, let's take this principle or this idea and apply it to something else. So I'm going to show you what I already applied it to. So this is the image that I'm going to ask you to open, and it's just called Modern Empty Room White. And with the edits that I already did, this is what it's going to change to. So you can see that I can change an image, change the perspective of the image here. So let me show you how I'm going to do this. I'm just going to turn off the edit that I already did. Now, based on what I already told you, the first thing I would suggest is do Command J just to duplicate the background. I'm going to turn off the background just so that it doesn't mess up anything for me. And then with the background copy, I'm going to now hit the Control key in order to get the right click. And I'm going to come down and I'm going to create or convert to a smart object. Once I have convert to smart object, the next thing I'm going to do now is go up to the edit menu here, and I'm going to come down to Perspective Warp. All right, now for the sake of this, I'm actually going to reduce my scale. I'm going to zoom out quite a bit, and I'm going to first start with this plane here, and I'm going to just draw a rectangle, and I'm just going to adjust it to make sure that it kind of lines up with the lines that I'm looking for. You can make this so that it goes off of the picture plane, and I'm actually going to strongly recommend that as we work on this so that it doesn't do any sort of funky perspectives. Okay, now all the way out here, I'm going to click and I'm going to drag all the way here until I can kind of get it to connect, and it's not connecting, though no worries. I'm going to bring this down. There it goes. Okay, so I'm going to connect it like that, and then I'm just going to bring these down so that I can line them up, and you can see that I'm looking at where the wall hits the ceiling and also where the wall hits the floor. Okay, so now that I have this like this, and you see I went way off the picture plane, I'm gonna now do the floor. So here I'm gonna connect the floor like this, and I'm gonna connect it like this. And like I said, I want to just make sure that I'm moving these lines around just a bit so that they kind of line up a little bit with the floor. But you can see when I do that, it changes the left plane. So I actually want to probably leave that alone. So this takes a little bit of finagling or tinkering. But once I have, in general, my planes in, I can certainly also deal with the plane of the ceiling if the ceiling was important. But since it's just a plain white and there's no texture on it, I'm just going to leave it without putting a plane on there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into warp. And when it comes to warp, I'm going to now start kind of adjusting and playing around with this. And this is really where the tinkering is going to help. I'm going to also press Command minus so that I can kind of pull out a bit more so I can really start to manipulate this. So the first thing is that I want to move this around over here, right? So you can see that how I'm doing this, right? So I'm going to try to keep this somewhat of a rectangle, but I'm moving it over so that it's much smaller. Remember, I can always come in and hold down the shift key. If I hold down the shift key, it locks it into this when the yellow comes up. Now I'm going to just continue to tweak this by kind of stretching this a bit, and it looks like I might actually need to move this around just a little bit. I probably made it a little too tight, but as we're working on this, we're just going to continue to make adjustments. All right, so I'm going to do, I really want it to look like I'm seeing kind of a hallway here. So I'm going to, like I said, continue to kind of tweak this like this. Some things that I have done in the past that has helped me to make sure that this works well is that you can see that I have my rulers on. So with my ruler selected, I can just click here and then I can drag down to make a perfect horizontal. And I can also do that with making a perfect vertical. And I think this is important to make sure that things don't look really, wacky. That can easily happen. You see how when I move this over, it makes the top look like it's stretched, but there's not an even distribution right here. So that's why I put these grid lines in. I'm going to now just do Command minus, oops, got to hit the wrong button here. Command minus here, so I can pull out. And then I'm just going to continue sort of stretching this as needed. And I can't really see, it's now gotten so small, it's hard for me to see. But I'm able to kind of check this. And this actually looks okay there. That looks okay there. But like I said, I'm just continuing to kind of tweak this. If I want to change it, right? So if I want the wall, do that, and then stretch that a little bit. Then I can move this around depending on how much I want to turn it. I actually want to turn it quite a bit, so that's how come I'm continuing to do this, is that again, like I said, you have to kind of keep an eye on the levelness, right? So I need to make sure that this is pretty level here so that it looks like it's a real space that someone actually can stand in. All right, so I might do something like that, and then I'm going to maybe move this down and move this down, and I'm doing this really because I don't want to cut off so much of the window. So I'm going to then adjust the bottom part here, and I'm comparing it to the blue guideline here, and I'm just going to move this around just a little bit, so maybe something a little bit like that. I'll bring this up a little bit and then over. All right, and then I need to pull back out here because I see that the window is not lined up here. So let me go ahead and straighten that. I'll come in, take a look at it. Looks like it's just still a little off. So I'll move this in just a bit. Let's check it now. Still a little off, so let me pull it back in just the tiniest bit. And then I'll zoom in, and that looks pretty good. Okay, so I think with that, I'm just gonna press return, and it will accept the changes here. Now, just so I can see it a bit better, I'm gonna now just remove the guides. So I'm gonna go to View, go to Guides, and then press Clear Guides. Now that I have that, you can see that I'm missing part of the floor, and this is where I would really suggest that we just use the generative fill. If you go to your polygonal lasso tool, I'm just going to click in here along the edges of this missing part, like so, and then I'm going to just ask it to fill like this, and let's see what options we get. You can see it takes a little bit of time. It just really depends on how big your image is. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so I can see a bit better, and I'm just going to click through my options, and I'm going to actually probably go with the second one here. So I can press that one, and here I'm going to get rid of that one, and now I have my flooring in here. All right, and then now that I've done this, just so I can turn it on and off, if I click on this and the layer underneath and put this into a group, I can now turn on the original image and then click, this is where we started and this is where we ended up. So here you can see that we can change the perspective of something. It doesn't have to be an interior space, as I showed you with the box, but this is a great way to, it's a very powerful tool as well. But I think you also need to have a general understanding of linear perspective in order to make this work and look realistic. Hope you enjoyed.